Hello and welcome back. I believe I've solved our technical issues. Andrew, I apologize. I believe you were saying, I'll just go ahead and get us started back up here. I believe you were discussing the depth that Chris Ballard was addressing that we had issues with in the past. Could you please complete your thought?
Yeah, so let's get back to the offensive line of the Colts and kind of what they've been doing this free agency. We haven't seen them go after big names per se,
right?
But the depth of the offensive line has been a focus with the signing of Sam Tevy, Julian Davenport, Joey Hunt, and we're going to talk about Chris Reed here in a bit. But when Anthony Costanzo and Braden Smith went down last year, you definitely noticed a fall off, and it really hurt the Colts last year.
Big time.
And with having a new quarterback come in and someone that really needs to build his confidence up, and we'd like to be able to protect him the way that we know this Colts offensive line can, you need to address the depth in case one of those guys go down. Now, because we have been pretty lucky with our guys, our starters on the offensive line playing a lot of snaps and staying fairly healthy. But when they do go down, we need to have guys that can step in and keep the train going. Right. So I think Joey Hunt, a guy that can play not only center, but he can also play in the guard positions. He's a good piece to have, and someone that I think has a very good chance of being on the roster come September.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think he's likely to go anywhere because we don't have any more depth. I don't think that it's center specifically right now. Re-signing Ryan Kelly. I don't see us drafting anyone, not even to replace Joey Hunt for depth, especially with the holes that we need to address over specifically at like the left tackle position. That's, I think, if we were going to go big somewhere in free agency this year, that or defensive end is where I would have thought we would have done so. And we didn't do either of those. We went small at a re-signing with Al-Qadin. Justin Houston, there's still no news on Justin Houston, correct? He hasn't signed anywhere?
He hasn't signed anywhere. Justin Houston has visits in Baltimore and in Houston next week. And from everything I've been hearing, the Colts are still open to bringing Justin Houston back. I'm not sure if he does return to the Colts, if it will be till either after the draft or unless it'll be a very cheap deal before the draft. So we'll have to see.
I was thinking about Justin Houston today at the gym. And I'm getting this vibe due to his age. I'm sure he's not getting anywhere near the money he wants on the market. The Colts sure as heck aren't going to pay him, anything outrageous. Is this going to turn into a Reggie Wayne, Marvin Harrison situation where he just ends up, hey, I'm not playing for this money I'm being offered. This when I'm going to retire. Other teams don't see the value that I feel I still bring to the table. So either that or he finally goes, okay, fine, just to stay where I'm at with this team that I like, I'd take my chances and just play for a little less money. You couldn't pay me enough money to go to Houston right now.
You're not wrong. I mean, that's a dumpster fire down there. Something I think with Justin Houston though is he's such a professional, and he's someone that he's going to be in shape year round, whether he's in a training camp or not. So if it could go out where if he doesn't like what's on the market right now, he could still stay in shape, and maybe when there's cuts, or maybe if there's injuries in preseason ball, Justin Houston might be able to sign with the team and fill a prominent role at that time too. So I don't think Justin Houston himself really is in any rush to sign anywhere either. And honestly, I don't think he should be. He should be able to pick where he wants to go, the right fit for him. And he's going to be ready when he's called upon.
If you're joining us now or rejoining, we want to welcome you again to episode 69. Nice. Of the Educated Fan. Andrew, I really appreciate our YouTube listeners. They've been through the thick of things with our technical errors and issues that we've had, and we appreciate you guys. So more moves in free agency. Andrew, we did sign a couple of guys from other teams. including guard Chris Reed from the Carolina Panthers. 1 year, $987,000. Another depth signing on the offensive line.
Yeah, and Chris Reed, he actually started quite a few games for the Panthers last year. When you look at his film, he's a very athletic guard and a guy that kind of almost reminds you of Mark Glowinski in a sense, where he's able to get to that second level and he's able to make really good blocks, especially in his zone scheme, which is what the Colts use.
Right.
So Chris Reed is a very under the radar signing. And I think it'll be between him, Joey Hunt, Danny Pinter. I think 2 out of those 3 will make the roster. So again, I think him and Joey Hunt could be neck and neck for that final interior lineman spot. So Chris Reed's a guy that you might not know. I think he was an undrafted free agent in 2015, was with the Jaguars, then went to the Panthers, and now the 1-year deal with the Colts. And like I said, he's an athletic guard, and he makes some pretty big holes. He's not afraid to push people around. So, and again, that just falls right in line with what we were talking about. Chris Ballard is prioritizing the offensive line depth in this free agency period. And whether you like his philosophy or not, as far as not going after the big guys or not overspending, this is how Chris Ballard's going to operate. He's going to use free agency more as depth and more as little pieces here and there, and the big pieces are going to come through the draft and trying to build their own. So but Chris Reed, I really like that signing. I think it creates great competition again along that offensive line, and somebody that if he does make the roster and has a good year, say if one of the interior guys gets injured, God forbid, it could be a guy that comes back next year. Even he's got great potential.
Yeah, I had another really cool picture of him. I guess this one's not really cool, but it shows his face. I had another cool one where he was actually blocking some Colts defensive linemen, but I don't even remember who it was. I didn't look that close because I just went with the picture I did. Safety, Sean Davis from the Steelers. I don't know much about the guy, but I do know a lot about the Steelers defense this past year. And even if this dude was on that roster, my guess is he can at least kind of ball. If not, he's at least got some Mike Tomlin discipline behind him, which would explain why the Colts were willing to sign him as, character is such a big deal to them. So no surprise that they're willing to take somebody off the Steelers defensive roster.
Yeah, so Sean Davis is a guy who started quite a bit at safety for the Pittsburgh Steelers back in 2017, 2018. He was one of their starting safeties. And then in 2019, I think he was injured. And then last year, he was more relegated to a backup or a special teams role. So I think for Sean Davis, I think what you're going to see is somebody that can play both safeties. I would say he's not as great as a free safety. He's more of the strong safety type, but he's a piece for depth and somebody that with Malik Hooker gone, I think the Colts want to go back to playing more 3 safety looks. Last year with the injuries at the safety position, they really couldn't do that. So when you have Julian Blackmon, Kari Willis, George Odom, Sean Davis, you have multiple guys that have plenty of experience at safety or are just playmakers at the safety position. And that gives Matt Eberflus some flexibility in playing those 3 safety looks. Or he just comes in and really just takes that, that Tavon Wilson role where he plays. Sure. He's a core special teamer, but when called upon, he can come in, and hopefully he plays better than Tavon Wilson, because Tavon Wilson really didn't do that well coming in for Kari Willis last year. But he's got plenty of experience, and he's a very good special teamer, which the Colts are always looking for their backups to be able to contribute on that side of the ball as well.
How old is he? Do you know off the top of your head?
I think he's only been in the league for maybe 5 years or so, 4 or 5 years. So he's not particularly old either. So sure. He's still got plenty of leg under him.
Perfect. Anything else, Andrew, in regards to any of the guys that we have signed or re-signed? I don't think we lost anybody else this week.
No,
right?
we didn't. Nobody from the Colts that was on the Colts last year signed anywhere this week. But I think you can kind of you see the theme of what this free agency has been about for Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And it's been about getting depth guys. It's not about making the huge splashes. And we've retained some of our own as our big splashes. That's what they've been. Re-signing T.Y. Hilton, re-signing Xavier Rhodes, re-signing Marlon Mack. Mm-hmm. Those have been the big splashes per se. And the rest have been more for depth pieces. And I think that's what Chris Ballard wanted to focus on. And we're going to get our big pieces, our big additions to this team. It's going to be through the draft in the next couple of weeks. So, which we're going to be getting into some pretty heavy draft talk, which I'm really excited about. So,
yep.
Now I added this to the outline here. And I want you to go first. What grade would you give the Colts free agency so far? Or just free agency in general, because it's pretty much over.
It's hard to grade just on an overall scale. I mean, if you force me to say how do you feel about free agency overall, I'd say B or B minus. And that's just because at that point you got to factor in how did you feel going into free agency, what were your hopes, and even if I knew it was more realistic that it wouldn't happen, I'm a little bummed out that we didn't sign any bigger names. Any guys that are experienced to fill a couple of big holes that we have. Now, I'm not losing my mind over it. I'm also, I mean, if you take out the factor that, the emotional factor of it, B+. I think the guys that we re-signed were huge, especially T.Y. I thought the Marlon Mack signing was incredible. He was another guy that said he was, I think, getting offered more money. Not much more, I'm sure, but he was being offered more money outside of the Colts. So him and T.Y. getting them on call it what it is, kind of a hometown discount. That felt good. So overall, B minus. If I take my hopes and dreams out of what we did, maybe B+.
Okay. See, I'm going to go a little bit lower. I think I'm going to go about a C+, because looking at what we've done, I don't really think the needle has moved much. I do think we haven't gotten worse, but I don't know how much we've gotten better either, because you lose an Anthony Costanzo. Right now we don't have Justin Houston or Danico Autry, and you think about it, this is just free agency though. But it was
but losing Costanzo, that's not a free agency loss. That's just a retirement loss. Just like because we're not factoring in Carson Wentz.
Well, at the same time, we haven't found a replacement for him yet either.
Right.
Because if you feel comfortable putting Sam Tevy out there at left tackle starting week 1, I'm not too comfortable with that. So That's why I think C+, because we didn't make any major moves outside of re-signing like T.Y. Hilton and Xavier Rhodes. But I think if we didn't re-sign those guys, we'd be looking at probably D's and we'd be in trouble. Because, like I said, it's been all of our signings have been mostly for depth, and outside of, we know T.Y. Hilton's wide receiver 1, Xavier Rhodes is cornerback 1.
Yeah,
Marlon Mack's going to get run at running back 2 probably. But Al-Quadin Muhammad, you don't really want him as your starter. He's more of a rotational guy.
Yeah.
Sam Tevy, Julian Davenport. I'm not a fan of him. He's on the Raven Clark level for me. But then the rest of the guys, if you have Joey Hunt playing a lot of snaps, Chris Reed playing a lot of snaps, Sean Davis playing a lot of snaps, that means that one of Quentin Nelson, Ryan Kelly, and Mark Gawinski's injured. That means that Julian Blackman or Kari Willis is injured, and those are really good guys for us. So you don't necessarily want these guys playing a lot of snaps. So
that's the good thing about depth signings, Andrew, is they don't have to play snaps. But the issue last year, our biggest issue was depth in key positions that we didn't know were an issue, because the year before that, left tackle, for example, Costanzo didn't miss a damn snap, so we didn't have to worry about those guys that were behind him. Now we discovered, okay, we do. So what is Chris Ballard doing? He's addressing the issue on the team, which was depth. Honestly, other than Justin Houston, we haven't, and Costanzo, obviously, we didn't lose much. So as long as those depth signings are there, they made the depth a little bit better, we hope. Hopefully we don't have to find out, like you said, but, and again,
I think Danico Autry is a bigger loss than you might think.
Oh yeah, Danico
Autry was pretty big last year, but that's the thing. That's why I kind of give it a C+, because I don't think we took a major leap forward, but did we take a step back? I mean, I don't really think that either. I think with these depth signings, we're definitely better protected against injury, and there's definitely more competition in those spots that were addressed. But again, I don't think there was a single guy on that team where you're like, okay, we're better at the starting position here than we were last year as far as free agency goes.
What's your grade if you factor in the Carson Wentz trade?
Carson Wentz trade, it goes up to probably a B to a B+, because I think Carson Wentz, especially with how he's been working with Pittman and hearing it from TY this week, because TY Hilton had his first throwing session with Carson Wentz, and the way he talked about how the ball just flew out of Carson Wentz's hands and how excited TY was, that means a lot, because TY wouldn't be that excited and wouldn't say that if he didn't really mean it. He would just say, oh yeah, it went good. But when Pat was talking about how he had texted with T.Y. Hilton over the weekend, T.Y. was genuinely excited. And he talked about how he's got some Andrew Luck traits, which I know T.Y. Hilton wants to get back to. So especially if those two can get a connection, Wentz has already been throwing with Michael Pittman, with Jack Doyle, with Paris Campbell. Like he's already starting to make these connections. And I think if you factor in the Carson Wentz deal, I would put that up to probably around a B for me.
Okay. Yeah. Carson Wentz, I still think, what was it? Even Mel Kiper, one of your favorite ESPN talking heads, Andrew, Mel Kiper said the Eagles letting Carson Wentz go might be one of the dumbest moves in NFL history.
Yeah, I mean, it very well could.
It could play out that way, and if it doesn't, then he goes, well, I didn't say for sure.
Our boy Dan Orlovsky, who's a close personal friend to you, he loves the mood. And I mean, poor Dan Orlovsky just getting destroyed by the media these past couple of weeks. They need to lay off him.
Was it over the Justin Fields thing?
Well, yeah, over the Justin Fields thing.
It's tough.
But yeah.
Hey, did you see Pat's allowed to have ESPN people back on?
Yeah, Dane was on there.
Yeah, and Ariel Helwani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of my and it's not like I'm unique in this aspect. Any MMA fan probably thinks Ariel's their favorite reporter. I mean, he's been like MMA's number one reporter, like SB winner for like a million years in a row. Anywho, this is a football podcast, Andrew. God, keep it straight. Let's move along to. With the next pick, I want to say this is a Colts image, Colts property. Don't know if I can use this. Covered up their sponsor on it, so I think we're doing good there. I often use things I don't know if we can use. We don't make any money. We just go for it.
Money doing this.
Yeah. If we start making money, I start getting in trouble. I'll start fixing things. Until then,
I fucking love football and I love you guys.
That's the property HBO and the NFL probably. With the next pick. So, Andrew, what did you think about episode 1? With the next pick, everyone, like I said earlier, if you're just now tuning in, this episode was like just under 13 minutes. It's a little documentary series. The Colts do, 6 episodes?
Usually 6 episodes.
6 episodes. It's just a little documentary leading up to the draft and kind of shows the Colts process, and the scouts get a little bit of shine in this. What's the assistant GM? Was that
Ed Dodds?
Ed Dodds. I knew it was Dodds. He gets a little shine in this show. So Andrew and I have been watching the last couple off seasons. We think it's really fun. But yeah, Andrew, what did you think about episode 1 this year?
Yeah, so it was really cool. So the first episode they followed around the East Coast area scout Mike DeReese, and then the West Coast scout Chris Magaha, and they followed them around, kind of showing how they were navigating things and being able to scout during during COVID-19 and how much more difficult it was, because generally the guys are able to go to the schools and go to practice, be able to talk to everybody, and they couldn't do that this year. They could only go to the games and kind of watch from afar. So they really talked about the relationships that they were kind of leaning on as far as being able to learn more of the character aspect, because with the Colts, and we're going to talk about this next week when we start dissecting these draft prospects, character means more to the Colts probably than any other team. They go so in depth on character to want to figure out what the guy's floor is and how much they really love football, and not only love football, but the guys and how they are in the locker room, how they are in the community, things like that. And a lot of that you can't do because the scouts, like I said, can't be on campus, can't be at the schools. So they really have to rely on their past relationships and making calls to all these people to really find out as much as they can about these players, since they have such limited access to them this year. Yeah,
and when all their hard work, I don't want to say starts. I mean, their job is a year-round job, but I mean, a lot of work they get in at one point is when everything was so uncertain with COVID. It was hard to tell how things were going to be. We're being extra cautious, everybody, So, yeah, their jobs got a hell of a lot more difficult this past year. I think the East Coast guy with the black hair and the glasses.
Mike Doris.
Yeah, he really talked about how long. I mean, he said he's been in the business with the Colts for how long? I mean, it sounded like a long time.
Been quite a few years. I think he might have been there I think he might have even been a holdover from the Grigson days, but I'm not entirely sure on that.
Well, he's learned a lot since then, I hope. He really talked about, like you said, the relationships that he had in the past and relying on those to get access to players in the first place, and then just in general, getting opinions on players and whatnot. What else do you like about this episode? I've got a fun little thing to pull up here and add to the picture here for the fans, but that I found interesting, but I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, so I think the one thing that stuck out to me is you don't really, you hear about the scouts all the time, but you don't really know what their lives are like. These guys are on the road so much. Like they were talking about how basically they were on the road for 2 weeks. They were going to be home for a little bit to see their family, and then they'd go right back on the road. These guys are just out there constantly grinding, and they're traveling, going from school to school. And when they're not, they're in hotel rooms, just breaking down film, creating reports to send them into the Colts scouting database that they all have access to. So it's definitely a grind, and you really have to love football and love your job to be able to be good at that and do it for a long time. Yeah, and you can tell that these guys especially, and I'm sure everyone on the Colts scouting staff feels this way, they absolutely love it, and they wouldn't trade their job for anything. But it was just kind of crazy to see the grind that they go through, and how much these guys are constantly watching film, constantly traveling from school to school. And it kind of, I think this is what the next pick series is all about. Just gives a little behind the scenes of what these guys are actually going through all year and then leading up to the draft.
Yeah, you would love that job, Andrew.
I would.
You would love that job. So something that stood out to me, it was during, let's throw the picture up here. It was during the scene where basically Chris Ballard was doing his end of the year press conference, but he had outside cameras. So we got the view of Chris Ballard through, just the webcam, but somebody was in there recording all this, and they zoom in on, and I've got the picture up here, Andrew, you'll get to see when you watch. Podcast listeners, if you want to see the picture, I guess you'll just have to go watch this on YouTube next time. But anywho, he's got a couple binders. One says 2020, 2021 offseason schedules and depth charts. And then the 2021, 2022 offseason schedules and depth charts. You would think the 2021, 2022 is for the 2021 season this year, right? So when I first saw this, I was thinking next offseason. I'm like, damn, Chris Ballard plans ahead, right? He's already filling shit in for next offseason. But then I was like, oh no, that's this season. But it did give me, put the question in my head, how soon do you think that binder's made? So the next one in his stack here is going to be 2022, 2023 offseason. How early do you think that binder's made up?
Probably once this draft is over, and then they'll because they start scouting prospects from the time they step on campus. So from their freshman year on, they're scouting these guys. So it's not just like, okay, who's draft eligible? Let's start looking into them now.
Yeah.
The Colts staff start watching film on these guys freshman year and start talking to coaches about them their freshman year. So as soon as the draft ends, they might take a couple weeks off to kind of relax. But Chris Ballard's talked about it before. As soon as the draft ends, they move right forward to the 2023 or 2022 draft.
Yeah.
It's almost an instantaneous process because other teams are doing it as well.
How much money would you pay to take one of these binders?
Oof. I'd pay a good amount of money just to tour and be in the draft room during all this kind
but
of.
I want to know what you would pay for one of these binders.
A few $100s.
Okay,
sure.
Last year's binder already all done.
It'd be very interesting.
You get to see like the thought. I mean, I assume Chris Ballard's brain is on these pages, right?
Oh,
so you get to see what happened. Okay, how much would you pay for this one, like this season's before the draft?
Season before the draft,
right now for this 2021, 2022.
I'd probably empty out my savings to see all that information. Oh, that's very valuable information.
Oh boy, that's hilarious. Okay, Danny, sorry, you guys are broke. Okay, Andrew, let's move it along to, unless you have something else to say about the show. Looking forward to episode 2. Why do we not have an episode 2 yet?
I don't know. They
Holiday?
They didn't put one out this week.
Neither did we.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they're just following our schedule. Sure. Let's see. Don't they usually release on Sundays? And it was Easter.
No, usually it's in the middle of the week, like Tuesday.
You couldn't just fucking lie and say, Sundays. No.
I'm a man of the people. I got to keep it straight with them.
Think you'd have your co-host back, but what do I know? All right. Free agent signings around the league. Andrew, defensive tackle Jarran Reed to the Chiefs. I don't know anything about Jarran Reed.
Really?
At this point, I feel like any of these guys, damn near. I know a few.
A pretty big piece on the Seahawks defensive line last year. And he ended up getting cut because they just couldn't afford him. And he goes to the Chiefs to prepare next to Chris Jones. So it's going to be a pretty formidable inside of that defensive line for Kansas City.
Defensive tackle Danny Shelton signs with the Giants. Andrew has here in the notes that he would have the amount of years and amount of money that these guys made, and he does not have that in there.
But you get it.
Our information guy is slacking. Anything to say on Danny Shelton?
Danny Shelton was a guy that I thought maybe the Colts might come in, and if he was going to be cheap, add some competition, but he goes to the Giants, and the Giants have been making plenty of moves this offseason.
And defensive back Quentin Dunbar, know that name, to the Lions. You're not a big fan of Dunbar, if I remember correctly.
Not really. I mean, he's all right, but I don't think for the Colts specifically, I really wouldn't want him. But he's not really a guy that excites me too much.
Mm-hmm. Absolute piss missile thrower, Colt McCoy to the Cardinals. What's his face? Quarterback is going to have some. Kyler Murray, thank you. He's going to have some good experience behind him. Good backup quarterback. I've heard other quarterbacks talk about Colt McCoy as their backup, and he's a valuable asset to a young guy. I think that's going to be big for Kyler Murray.
Yeah, I agree. I think Colt McCoy is a good fit behind Kyler Murray because he's a very smart quarterback, and he's been a backup for a long time, so he'll be able to provide Kyler Murray with some good insight as he continues to develop.
Former Colts safety and special teams specialist Matthias Farley joins his second AFC South team, the Titans, his third NFL team overall. Notre Dame grad. I used to work with his sister. I've talked about this repetitively. When I lived in North Carolina, she follows me on Instagram. If you want the proof, go check it out. Anywho, good for him. I'm glad he's still, on a roster. The average NFL career, Andrew, is only about 3 years.
Right.
Which is absurd when you think about the amount of people in the NFL, and you can name how many that have played 5, 10, 15. Hell, now the list of people that have played 20 years is growing. So, I'm glad he's made it past that 3-year mark.
Yeah, I was a big Matthias Farley fan. He was a really good guy, good for the locker room, just
phenomenal guy.
Yeah, exactly. And there just wasn't a spot for him on the Colts, so I hope he does well in Tennessee.
And Josh Allen's getting a little protection at the offensive tackle position. Bobby Hart to the Bills.
Yeah, that one I think more is just depth. The next guy, I've got a story about this. So Micah Simon, wide receiver, signed with the Panthers this week. This kid, good for him. So last year I think he's from BYU. Last year, because COVID shut everything down, he went undrafted and didn't get a chance to have a pro day or really anything. Didn't even get an invite to an NFL camp. Well, this guy comes back and he's been working over the past year. He comes to BYU's pro day, catches passes from Zach Wilson with all these teams watching Zach Wilson, goes out and runs like a 4.340, and the Panthers sign him this week. So good for him for chasing his dream, not giving up and killing his shot when he had the chance. So good for Micah Simon.
That's awesome to hear. Hey, just because you mentioned him catching passes for Zach Wilson, did you hear basically Mac Jones talked, what's that guy's name? Devontae Smith? The receiver, he wasn't going to work out. That wide receiver wasn't going to work out for Alabama's pro day, and Mac Jones talked him into running routes for him, and then they ended up tearing it up. You got to wonder if that was planned. He's like, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to tell all these teams that you're not going to work out, and then I'm going to talk you into working out with me and running routes, which is going to make me look like a superb leader, and it's going to make you look awesome because you're an incredible wide receiver, and it's just going to up your stock. And then also it's going to make it look like you're a team player. So we're both getting some character additions to our stock draft and some skill added to our draft stock. So great move if that's what happened. I mean, absolutely.
Devontae Smith is Marvin Harrison 2.0. That kid can ball. Probably my favorite wide receiver in this class, and that's saying something because Jamar Chase is unbelievable.
I would think so. Who's the best corner in the draft, Andrew? I want you to tell me who you think it is because Chris Sims has an opinion, and I want to see if yours is the same.
The best corner in the draft, I think, is Patrick Surtain.
Of course, I can't think of this guy's name.
With Caleb Farley and JC Horn probably neck and neck for number 2.
Do you think that maybe your opinion would be different if Farley would have played last year because he opted out?
Right. I mean, maybe what concerns me about Farley more is his injuries, but it sounds like those are from everything that's coming out of Indianapolis. It sounds like his injuries aren't too much of a concern. I mean, I think both Surtain and Farley and Horn are all going to be very good pros.
That's a big loss for teams. That's something out of the combine. That's the biggest loss for teams, in my opinion, other than seeing these guys up close and personal, which they can do throughout these pro days now, is the medical side of things. They don't their medical guys don't get to get their hands on these guys, especially the ones with, questionable health history.
So, not sure if you knew this. So as soon as the NCAA tournament ended in Indy and all those guys cleared out, they are doing a medical combine in Indy right now. 150 prospects. Yeah, 150 prospects.
Is this news today?
No, this has been all throughout this week.
All right.
The top 150 prospects are in Indy right now getting medical evaluations, and it's limited to who can be there. Typically, the entire medical staff for each team can be there. Now it's limited to just one team doctor and one team like athletic trainer.
I was let down by one of my sources.
But they're still able to get all these medicals done, and that's where a lot of these big time prospects, especially the ones with injury concerns, are going there so teams can look at them to help boost their stock.
That's great news. Chris Sims thinks Farley should be the number one corner, just based on his tape, and maybe even a top 10 pick.
I mean, I could see Farley going in the top 10. I could see Farley going in the top 10. I could see Patrick Surtain going in the top 10. Both. Okay. I mean, both would be really good fits to Dallas at 10.
Okay. Off my tangent. It's never me. Finally, me. Andrew, some guys that have re-signed with their current teams, defensive tackle Mike Daniels for the Bengals and defensive end Tyson Alualu, Steelers.
Yeah, I think out of those, Mike Daniels is probably the biggest one because the Bengals defensive line really doesn't have too many pieces. So if Mike Daniels especially being there will help give them a little beef up front.
Okay. News around the league, Andrew. This is literally the biggest section in the notes, guys. It's the biggest section in the notes, and Andrew has 5 minutes sitting next to it. He is out of his... Hold on. He is out. Oh shit! I got rid of the bleep.
We do not care
anymore. We do not care. Anywho, NFL officially moved to a 17-game regular season last week, which adds the Colts versus the Bucks as our 17th game in Indy. Andrew and I already talked.
That's going to be a Sunday night football game finally at Lucas Oil Stadium.
Absolutely.
Since the Colts haven't hosted one in God knows how long.
Absolutely, it will be.
I hope so.
100%. I mean, unless the Bucks just take or we the Bucks or the Colts just take an absolute shit this year. I would imagine that's going to be flexed to Sunday night. Didn't they add this new TV deal too? Added some more flex options as well. I believe games can be flexed to Monday night too.
I don't know if that kicks in this year or if it officially kicks in 2022.
It's next year, but I think next year too is the first year outside of the current DirecTV NFL Sunday Ticket deal, which I looked this up a long time ago, but I think not this year, but the next year is the first year that deal's over. And my assumption is the NFL will just maintain rights to that themselves and stream the games themselves through NFL Sunday Ticket, at least adding a streaming only option. They've got to. DirecTV won't let it happen right now. Anyway, I'm a big fan of this. Andrew hates it. That's fine. I don't care. NFL announced this week that phase 1 of OTAs can begin on April 19th. Listen, the union is using last year as an excuse to be like, we'll see. The season could go on without OTAs and the off-season workouts and blah, 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 blah. Hey, man, how many players got hurt last year compared to any other year? I would assume it's a high amount. 2, how many young guys didn't make teams because they didn't have the chance to go to those workouts? So they never got extra snaps. They didn't get looked at enough. Mm-hmm. And number 3, I mean, I didn't think we had great football early in the year last year.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, the OTAs, they're voluntary. So it's not like you have to be there either. So
you don't.
I mean,
but at the end of the day, Andrew, especially if you're a mid-tier play, right, guy skill-wise, you're always worried that a younger, cheaper guys out there, at those optional, practices performing well and taking your job right out from under you. Mm-hmm. But I mean, 2, if you're a mid-tier guy or a low-tier guy, you got to be there. I mean, you played sports in high school. Were you at the optional stuff? Yeah. Every single one, right? Yeah, right. Had to be. I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't play in a snap, a minute, a nothing. So I get it's optional, but they're necessary. I just don't. I just can't fathom them getting taken away. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, I love you. Okay, but you don't have to fucking show up to OTAs, man. No one's benching you. Okay, those
Aaron
guys.
Rodgers needs to keep hosting Jeopardy. He's been doing a phenomenal job.
Incredible. Moving along. Goodell, Roger, that is, says, hold on. What's the Jimmy from the Colts equivalent of Roger Goodell?
Roger from the NFL.
Raji. Oh my God. Goodell says the NFL plans to have full stadiums this fall. Hey. That's incredible.
Love it.
I hope it happens. I hope it's true.
It was very weird going to Lucas Oil Stadium last year and only having, what it was, 12% or whatever it was. But hey,
there was a bright side too. There was a bright side. A lot of space. Put your feet down on the seat in front of you like you're in the movie theater. Getting out of town wasn't so hard. Getting out of the parking space. There were some nice aspects. I'd rather it be loud, rumbling, tumbling though.
Right. Exactly.
Excited for that. Roger Goodell is not a man who says shit that he doesn't intend to make happen. Right. So good for us. Jets trade. This is probably the biggest news in the last week and a half. Jets trade QB Sam Darnold to the Carolina Panthers for a 2021 6th-round pick, a 2022 2nd-round pick, and a 2022 4th-round pick. Carolina also picks up Darnold's 5th-year option for 2022. The Jets are going to get Zach Wilson, yeah? So why not get rid of Sam Darnold? That I assume that's the idea there. They probably should have done that earlier before it was obvious that the Jets were out on Sam Darnold. But the Panthers just giving up on Teddy Bridgewater after 1 year does not look good, in my opinion, for them. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know what's going to happen to Teddy Bridgewater, but I'd assume Sam Darnold's going to be the starter.
Yeah,
after what they gave up.
They've given Teddy Bridgewater permission to find a trade partner or go out and talk to other teams. As far as
he'll be a backup wherever he goes.
Yeah, as far as the Panthers are concerned, I like the move because it obviously seems like they would have had to give up more draft capital to go and go up to number 4 and take like Trey Lance or Justin Field or Mac Jones, whoever's left after the 49ers, don't take them. And obviously they liked what they saw enough with Sam Darnold to be able to make that move. And I've talked about it on the show. I'm a fan of Sam Darnold. I think he was too. I think he was in a terrible situation in New York, and in Carolina, he's going to have weapons around him. He's going to have Christian McCaffrey. He's paired back with Robbie Anderson, who he had a connection with in New York until Robbie left for Carolina. DJ Moore is still on that team. And you just got to, I think now this kind of switches things for the Panthers to put a left tackle in there and just start building around Sam Darnold. Give him the chance and the opportunity to prove himself. And I think that Sam will do well in Carolina, and the Panthers have been aggressive wanting to make a move for a quarterback all off season. So it doesn't surprise me. As far as Teddy Bridgewater, I think he can go find maybe try to find a backup spot. He's probably going to have to rework his deal because he's got a pretty expensive deal, but we'll have to see. Now, as far as on the Jets, and I mean, if they're very, very convinced that Zach Wilson is going to be the next big thing, and I'm a huge Zach Wilson fan as well. Yep. I like Zach Wilson more than I do Sam Darnold. But again, the Jets now have to do what they didn't do with Sam Darnold, and that's surround Zach Wilson with talent. You're going to have your young QB. Now build your offensive line. You got a good start with Mekhi Becton. Get some more pieces on that offensive line. You have Corey Davis and Denzel Mims and Jamison Crowder. You have some weapons for him, but now you got to protect him. And so I think that's where it starts for the Jets. And if they want to make this one work, they need to not screw around and mess up these picks that they're going to build around Zach Wilson.
Do you think they should have just traded? Do you think they should have traded back? Did you already say that? Should they have traded back just to surround Sam Darnold? Or, I mean, is Zach Wilson going to end up being so good that, this is going to turn out to be the better option? But you got to stop the revolving door of coaches and quarterbacks.
Right. And I think they were in a good spot either way. honestly, because I think if you do trade back, or even if you stayed at number 2 and drafted like Kyle Pitts or somebody to pair with Sam Darnold, I think that definitely would have helped. If you would have traded back, you would have had a ton of pieces. But then again, when you're at number 2 and like it's the Jets, but every team thinks they're not going to draft this high again when they're at number 2. So go out, get Zach Wilson. You have now a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal for 5 more years instead of Sam Darnold, who would only be there for 2. So you kind of reset it financially, and you still have a ton of draft capital to go out and build around Zach Wilson. So I think this was probably the better move for the Jets to trade Sam Darnold away. But I do think Sam Darnold, if he's put in the right situation, can have success as
well. My opinion on that, Andrew, I don't know if maybe they should have, but I'm surprised they didn't. I thought Sam Darnold, if he ended up getting traded to the Colts, I was going to be okay with that too. That wouldn't have been my first pick. I'm happy with Carson Wentz, but I wouldn't have been upset about getting Sam Darnold. I think he has potential to be a good quarterback still. But, part of the reason Bob Saleh went to the Jets, he said, and, maybe this was just one of those ploys to try to make sure Sam Darnold's draft capital stayed up. But, he said part of the reason he chose the Jets was Sam Darnold. Now Sam Darnold's out the door. But who knew, Bob Saleh maybe at that point didn't know, oh, you know what? We have third pick. Oh, Zach Wilson. You watch this guy's tape. So, and obviously he's not the GM, but.
Right. I don't think they make this move, though, unless Robert Saleh is on board.
So
he was probably on board with this. He probably knew that it was probably best for Sam Darnold to move on. But when you go to a team, obviously the kind of person that Robert Saleh is, he's not going to throw Sam Darnold under the bus. So after the evaluation and everything, he was probably on board with that as well.
Okay. Andrew, the Atlanta Falcons have received calls from multiple teams in regards to trading for the 4th pick. Right now, if the Falcons don't trade back, who do you? I mean, and obviously we're going to get into draft stuff later, but I mean, Matt Ryan has years left. We've talked about Matt Ryan ourselves and said Matt Ryan was playing good football. That he's not the reason the Falcons were struggling last year. If they don't give up that pick to all these teams who now, once the quarterback's position starts to fill up 1, 2, 3, other teams panic and want to trade up to make sure they get the one that's left or the two, one of the 2 that's left. So teams start panicking. I mean, the Falcons could get a lot from that. Who's worth not trading back to take if you're the Falcons?
So for the Falcons, they could go a bunch of different ways. Like we said, I don't think Matt Ryan's the problem. Matt Ryan is only turning 36, and we've seen quarterbacks that have played till they're 39, 40. And so I think Matt Ryan still has some good years left. Now, do they want to draft Matt Ryan's successor like Trey Lance and Justin Fields and sit him for a year or 2? That's always an option.
Yeah.
If not, they could draft like Kyle Pitts and put him as that other weapon next to Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. But really, Hooper. It was basically take over the Austin Hooper role, but just in a different way, because Kyle Pitts is a unicorn and one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And so you could do that, but really it was on the defensive side of the ball where the Falcons had most of their issues. So their best option would be to entice one of these teams like a Denver, if Denver's not sold on Drew Lock. Like the Lions, if the Lions really fall in love with a quarterback, even though they've got Jared Goff, you never know with this new regime and with the Lions, they could try to jump up. I've heard over the past week that the Washington football team has fallen in love with Trey Lance and is looking at all the avenues that they can think of to try to get up and take Trey Lance. So I think if you're the Falcons, you definitely have to listen. And if you're not going to take a quarterback, your best interest is to take the best deal that you can get, trade down, and add pieces to that offense, because you're going to have Matt Ryan for a few years. You might as well just try to build around him and make a go at it.
Sure. Seahawks and wide receiver Tyler Lockett agree on a monster 4-year, $69.2 million extension with $37 million guaranteed. Good for Tyler Lockett.
Tyler Lockett reminds me of, he's obviously, I don't think he's on the level of T.Y. Hilton, But he kind of like T.Y. Hilton. He's like a smaller guy, and he's very quiet. Nobody really talks about him, but he's a damn good wide receiver.
Yeah.
So good for him.
Don't blink, he'll run right past you.
Oh, yeah.
Raiders and offensive tackle Colton Miller agree on a 3-year, $54 million extension with $42.6 million guaranteed. Also good for Colton Miller.
So he is the first guy from the 2018 draft class to get an extension. So this could be kind of in the area that Braden Smith might get for an extension, something in this value. But it kind of shows you that the extensions of like Quentin Nelson, Darius Leonard,
they're coming.
Braden Smith, they're right around the corner. And I think the Colts would be smarter than not to get those done quicker. So that way these guys aren't getting the extension. They're just kind of boosting that number up higher and higher that the Colts have to match or even pay more.
Yep. And last but not least, Cardinals and center Rodney Hudson agree on a 3-year, $30 million extension.
The Cardinals have been making moves this offseason, man. J.J. Watt, A.J. Green.
DeAndre Hopkins last year.
DeAndre Hopkins, like the Cardinals are going for it. It's exciting. I like the Cardinals.
Yeah. I mean, you got to put some talent around Kyler Murray. I don't think I don't know that he's ever going to be good enough to carry a team on his own. So, try to win one on his rookie contract still. Who knows?
That's what a lot of the teams are doing is loading up on big contracts while you still have these quarterbacks on their rookie deals and you're not having to pay them big quarterback money. So, and I think that's exactly what the Cardinals are trying to do.
That's what the Rams were doing when they were so good. And now then they paid Jared Goff and things went downhill. So that's it, though. We got the social up here. Go follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at The Educated Fan. That's at TheEducatedFan. Anything to add before we send the people off to their weekend, Andrew?
Free agency is pretty much over. So our next couple episodes are going to be all about the draft. We're going to get into basically the offensive side of the ball for the Colts and the defensive side of the ball, kind of what they might be looking at, some prospects that Brandon and I like. And it's going to be fun. We're kind of full steam ahead. And then I think we're going to do a mock draft episode like we did last year too, right before the draft. So it's going to be fun. I love draft season.
Andrew does love draft season. This is my second one, paying attention hardly at all. So hopefully I am still motivated to do all that work. And I was real into it last year. I was like, I'm going to make this shit good. Sure, I can find the time to do it.
Hey, it got us on the Michael Pittman train we were both on. And I'm
gonna give you guys, listen, draft episodes, get ready for some on-screen action here. We're gonna have some graphics, and I'm just learning all sorts of new fun stuff. Next week there's not going to be an episode again. It is going to be on Tuesday, a week from this Tuesday. So we did a late episode this week to kind of blend last week and this week. So the next episode is going to be the following Tuesday. Like I said, I'm traveling for a wedding. Best man, I got to do some best man shit, and that doesn't include doing this show. I mean, that's just the way it is. But like I said, go follow us down here. For you YouTube listeners right now, go like, subscribe. Wait till we finish the video, then go to the video that posts, and then like and comment that too. But also subscribe, so you always know when we're going live, when our schedule gets a little wonky like it is right now. Hopefully we have some normal weeks ahead after that. But until next time, Andrew, go Colts.
Go Colts.
I fucking love football, and I love you guys.